Welcome to the Awakening Frequency podcast where truth meets transformation. Hosted by Ledesma and Danielle Henchcliffe. This show dives deep into the unseen, the unknown, and the undeniable forces shaping our world. From UFO disclosure and government cover-ups to whistleblowers exposing hidden truths, we pull back the curtain on the mysteries they don't want you to know. We explore spiritual enlightenment, secret agendas, and the cosmic forces influencing our reality, empowering you to see beyond illusion. So, if you're ready to break free from the matrix, challenge the narrative, and awaken your consciousness, you've come to the right place. Tune in, open your mind, awaken your frequency.
Welcome back to the Awakening Frequency podcast. My name's Danielle, one of your hosts, and we got Donald, the co host, with me tonight. If you can, please follow us on our platforms, our audio and video. We are over on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, and Patreon. And for audio, you can see us on Spreaker, iHeart, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, and many more. So hit like and subscribe to the podcast, and let's get right into it. So, welcome back to episode 2 of the Awakening Frequency podcast. I'm your host, Danielle, and today we're diving into something straight out of the classified black vaults of the CIA. We're talking about Project Sunstreak, s- part of a larger remote viewing program the U.S. government secretly funded for decades. We're also going to connect the dots between the psychic operations and one of the most mysterious ancient artifacts in human history, the Ark of the Covenant. Could remote viewers have located it? Why did the government suddenly pull the plug after all these years? Was it really about lack of evidence, or did they find something that couldn't be controlled? Let's get into it.
Yeah,
What?
right on.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being on the show today. Thank you for everybody watching right now. We are live on audio, like she said a little bit ago, and this is going to be an interesting podcast because we're gonna, like she said, we're going to be talking about the CIA and all kinds of good stuff that's going to kind of dive real deep, man, underground, and it's going to go down to some military stuff, right? There's been some stuff that just had recently got disclosed, right? And we're just trying to figure out why it came out and then why this information links to the Ark of the Covenant, right? And so I don't know. It's just it's real mind-boggling to begin with, right? Because we start thinking about the Ark of the Covenant, we start thinking about the military, industrial complex and everything that comes along with it, and then we start thinking, well, why did they do this, right? And I just think that we need to figure out and kind of dive a little bit deeper into that rabbit hole, like you said, and just kind of see what we can come up with, right? So what'd you come up with, Danielle? Let's see what you got.
Okay. What is Project Sunstreak? So, a little background. This was a remote viewing technique that they used, trained individuals using altered states of consciousness to see locations, people, events across time and space. Project Sunstreak was one of several programs adjacent alongside Project Stargate and Grill Flame. And it was completely ran by the De Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA. Operatives were tasked with viewing everything from Soviet military installations to ancient archaeological sites. Mention they they've mentioned about 12,000 files that were classified. They're declassified, and they have have released ancient manuscripts, sketches, and their analysis. And this is where I think things get real interesting.
I mean, so I mean, why did they do this project? Sunstreak. Was it just because they wanted to try to? Was it? I think it was because of what the CI they were trying to
Uh,
locate different items, right? Back in the
Well,
past.
I think it comes from this famous remote viewing program because there was previous targets. Let me give you some examples of why I think they went there. They were remote viewing Soviet submarine bases, successfully describing submarine construction techniques and underground bays, and it was confirmed later by satellite intel. And then the CIA tasked someone to view Mars in the distant past. This transcripts describes structures, tall beings, catalysms, and then the Jupiter mission. Remote viewers describe features of Jupiter's atmospheres, moons before the Voyager mission. So these aren't stories from like a friend's YouTube channel. These are CIA files. You can read them yourself.
Right.
And that raises that question, if they're getting hits, why did they go and take that turn to the Ark of the Covenant? And that's where it gets interesting, the biblical origin. So the Ark of the Covenant. The biblical origin of the Ark of the Covenant, it just so we know what we're remote viewing here, what the government was looking at. It's a golden chest said to house 10 commandments, capable of emitting deadly force, connection to ancient technologies or misunderstood science, possibly even ET. Remote viewers allegedly were tasked with finding the Ark. The transcripts suggest it was buried in a temple under a mountain, possibly in Ethiopia or in the vault in the Vatican. And the Ark shows up in the CIA archives, though redacted with with the sessions with the remote viewer, that data is missing. So if the Ark is real and it's still out there, would it make sense that the government would want to keep that quiet? We're talking about a device with destructive or even divine powers, something that could rewrite history as we know it.
Right.
And I think that is the probably the catalyst to why they went after this. If it
I mean, even I was kind of going into that little rabbit hole too because they even said that the during World War II, I believe it was Himmler, he was really into uh, the Ark of the Covenant. So they actually went and started digging for it over there in France. So they were on a side of a mountain and they had dug tunnels. They were actually looking for this Ark because they wanted that power
yep,
of that it had inside. Now, when it comes to the story of the Ark, of course, we all know that the Ark the internal components that were inside of the ark were originally from the story of Moses, right? Because in the story in the biblical story of Moses, you know, uh, of course, this comes from the first Old Testament book, right? So everybody has heard the story. We've seen the movies. We've seen everything about the book of Exodus, where this everything just takes place. And God delivers these tablets to Moses, in which he was using to as for his people with these commandments, telling them, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do, commit adultery, things like that, right? So when he broke these tablets, they put the tablets they made this ark,
yeah,
um, and so when the ark was created, because in the biblical sense, we're going to use it as a historical, uh, historical sort of book, right? Because that's pretty much what it is. So in the book of Exodus, it just tells you that it was constructed with 2.5 cubits of length, 1.5 cubits of breadth, 1.5 cubits of height, right? So they wanted to make sure it was like a 131 by 79 by 79 centimeters, and this is basically what the Ark of the Covenant was made of, right? That was built, and really, in reality, it was actually made out of wood. I believe the only thing that was made out of gold was the very top of this, right? And the
Yeah.
handles, because that would have made this thing extremely heavy, right? And apparently, in the book of Exodus, that they used this ark to, in battles, right?
Yep.
To take over enemies. They use it in the battles of Jericho, right? Where they actually
Went for
took the
7 days around.
right. They took it with them, and then they used the trumpets. God told them to use the trumpets, and the walls came down. Here we go, walls of Jericho. So and that's what kind of the energy that was inside of this ark, and the remote viewing of it is why they wanted to find this piece of historical artifact, if it's still around.
During it, and I think the timing, 19 it was during the Cold War.
Right.
Were we also in a race to find it first? If, during the Cold War, December 5th, 1988 is when these remote viewers started doing it, and he drew the pictures. I mean, what he described, it could be one of many places, but I would think every powerful country would want their hands on this if it is as powerful as history has said. And the last time it was seen historically, any documents would be the Vatican's, a book out of the Catholic, the Maccabees, um, when they invaded the Battle of Babylon. That is
Right.
the last time anybody ever saw the Ark of the Covenant. It disappears in history. We don't know where it ended up, if it got, burned when they burned the temple. Was it taken by I can't say that, King Nezera? Eh,
Yeah. He's the one
yeah,
that burned everything down,
yeah,
uh, burned the whole city down, and where the ark was in there. But then it was believed that the ark, well, they said, like in the earlier 13th century, later in 13th century and 14th century, in between that time, that the ark was in France, in a cave somewhere. So this is why uh,
yep,
the German army decided to go start digging and looking for it, because they
yep,
believed that was in that general area, right? Thus, we get Raiders of the Lost Ark. The same story, same scenario. Hey, have you noticed that Steven Spielberg, you know, he did Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? And we know he was on point, right? We all know he was on point. From the very beginning of that movie to the very end of that movie, he's like right on point on everything. Now, to make Raiders of the Lost Ark, he's digging into history. Here we go again, right? So why not it be true, right? You know what I mean? It kind of throws you into that little,
Who
I don't
was his consultant on that movie? Because we know who was consulting him with Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
know, yeah, Hynek.
Hynek, mm, you know? So, you know, he's coming out with a new movie in 2026
I
in
saw
the
that.
same genre, and I feel like he's got some type of, I don't know, inside information, so I'm excited to see how they spin it. There is a famous rumor on set that him and Hynek argued over how to portray the ETs. Hynek said they were time travelers,
Yeah,
and Spielberg wanted them to be aliens, and they
right,
had a big fight on set over this, and ultimately Spielberg won, and we saw aliens, not time travelers.
right.
And so is this next movie gonna be time travelers? Who knows?
Yeah.
I
I, I
I'm
think
excited.
he's going to stay with the little aliens, you know, the little
Yeah.
grays. I think he's going to
Yeah.
stick right there because I mean,
E.T. did so good for him too.
yeah,
E.T. came out later.
yeah, it did. I mean, that when we get back to the remote viewing thing, of course, they were doing it from the 1970s, and they went all the way through 1978, and they were actually looking for the missing aircraft that they found 15 miles away in 1972 or something like that. When they were doing remote viewing or testing, and like you said, you know, they were looking for different artifacts, things like that, which was the military complex.
Yep.
And it does it work? That's the thing. Does it? I mean, apparently it does because they're able to locate these items uh, close enough to where they're able to almost pinpoint pretty good accuracy with them within miles, right? So why not be able to remote view, right?
So, why did the government supposedly stop remote viewing? The official narrative on this is the program was terminated in the mid 90s due to lack of consistent results, which, you know, form your own opinion. But insiders and former remote viewers like Joe McGonigal. He is remote viewer 001, and Ingo Swan claim otherwise. They're claiming it didn't go away. Possible reasons that they stopped: remote viewers started accessing intel deemed too sensitive, and the ethical and moral implications became too complex. And then the private black budget programs took over after it went off book. So it actually worked, and then it scared them.
Well,
And then I don't think it ever really went away because there was a lot of success, but there is a narrative with Project Sunstreak when they reviewed this later in the 90s or 2000s, this whole classified program, they're saying it was unsuccessful.
right.
But there is way too many people and way too many other declassified information that conflicts with that.
Oh,
And
and then why did they declassify it? Hey, let's pay the bills here. Let's take a real quick break, and we'll be back after this sponsor. See you in a minute.
what is your plan when landlines and cell phone towers don't work? When commercial infrastructure fails? We have seen this happen after natural disasters, unheard of, once in a lifetime situations. It's happened, and Bofang is having a flash sale. I am a big proponent for ham radios, these amateur radios. They fill in the gap and they're completely independent of commercial infrastructure. You do need a license to transmit, you do not need one to listen. And in an emergency situation, the rules are a little different. And I've seen in real time what the ham radio community can do. So click the link, get them at this price because I'm telling you, for a pair for like 70 something dollars, that's cheap. And this is a good brand. Get the extended antennas, get a Faraday bag, get yourself prepared. Yes, that those are the Bofang ham radios. They are two-way radios. They also broadcast the NOAA weather. And right now, for the next 5 hours, they are on flash sale. Extremely low price for what I deem to be an essential item in emergency preparedness. I have 4 of them myself with all the accessories, and this one right now is on flash sale. It's the most updated version, even more updated than what you just saw. They came out with new ones. So grab yours today while they're super cheap.
All
Okay.
right,
So,
let's get back to it. So yeah, we were talking about how it was just declassified and why they did that, right? I mean, what are your opinions on why all this was declassified? And of course, we were talking about the Ark of the Covenant, and that's, I've heard like different stories on the Ark, and how it helped the people, um, but it also went against them at the same time. It because
Yes.
that they the other, like Nebuchadnezzar, whatever his name was, he wanted the power of that. He wanted to take over, and he did. He actually did, but then he lost the battle later on, right? So,
Yep.
and the thing I got out of the Ark is that, in the biblical fact, the not the fact, but the biblical relationship between God, the Ark, um, and let's just say the cross and Jesus, it's there's kind of like a give and take on that, right? It's like you have it. Some people want the power, and then they use that because it had the word, to help them go through a difficult time, right? And it helped them go through a difficult time. But it was a symbolism. I'll say it to you that way. Let's just say it that way. It's more like a symbolism that was used, in that forefront with the ark. And and who doesn't want that power? Now they've talked about how that something in there, it could have been almost like a nuclear fallout of some sort, right? What did we talk about, that people that were guarding this ark supposedly were actually getting sick, right?
And they were actually there was reports of people dying when they mishandled it.
Wow.
There's biblical references to, when Moses was told to build this, that it was a copy of the one in heaven. Just in a historical biblical sense, if you
Right.
deep dive where the ark came from and what they say in the Bible. And so you got this replica here, and a lot of people, if they weren't wearing the right things, it sounds like technology to me. It really does. It fed, it defended because it fed the people. It also defended the people, and they took it to every battle, and the ark could only be opened with the time, that the old school, what is it? The mythology of it is the ark could not be open until there a certain time of God's people. Like, there's a whole mythology behind it biblically, but there are some rumors that maybe the ark went back to heaven, like Jesus ascended back.
Right.
Um, and they said that this was made as a copy. Did it get taken back to heaven? Is it even here on earth? And then we've got so many rumors about where it could be today. And one of my things is if a civilian psychic can access hidden nuclear launch codes or ET contact points,
Right.
that changes the game. And they're using it to look for the Ark of the Covenant. It bypasses national security altogether. Why is the Ark of the Covenant falling under national security? Because that's what Project Sunstreak, it's all about national security for our government,
Right.
and the Ark of the Covenant is national security. Um,
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, why should it be national security? It's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to exist,
right.
right? So,
That
and this is why it doesn't exist. I'm gonna read this to you real quick, okay? So it says, according to biblical narrative, a few years later, the elders decided to take the ark into the battlefield to assist, them against the Philistines, having recent been defeated in the Battle of Ebenezer. Uh, they were again heavily defeated in the loss with 30,000 men. The ark was captured by the Philistines, and Horphany, and the Philistines were killed. The news of the capture was taken by Shiloh, the messenger, with the clothes of the rent upon, his head. It says, so it says they captured the ark, right? But then of course, that the ruler had destroyed that whole city, right, and had burnt the whole city to the ground, which they figured that the Ark of the Covenant was burnt when he took over, right? And that was at what was his name? Nebuchadnezzar, whatever we talking
Yeah,
about.
ever
Okay,
connect. Yeah,
yeah. So he supposedly burned it down, and this is where a lot of scholars, even today, they even in the like History Channel, they all kind of think that it all burnt right there, and it all kind of went away. So I don't know. Does it's when you heard of the story that's in Africa, right? Where the what's it called? That
the Ascom, Ethiopia, it's
Ethio-
the St. Mary's Chapel.
right,
Now, okay, what we're looking at here is there's a group of individuals in Ethiopia that are Old Testament Jewish. They are not like their fellow countrymen. This is this is way different, and they believe they have the Ark of the Covenant, and they've moved it into this chapel. And over years, mo there's someone out there that has interviewed these guards, and all 3 that he interviewed are blind because of cataracts, and they vote. You get a lifetime placement, and they vote who's gonna guard it. 1 guard, and they are armed. They guard it with, weapons. And if you were voted to be that guard, a lot of people that get that position will run away because to them it's a death sentence.
right.
And so he interviews these 3 men and they all have the same symptoms: radiation poisoning, cataracts, which is a huge thing with radiation, blindness, like they're all sick and nobody's been inside. They don't That is a city that is locked down, and they feel as though this is their purpose. Their community's purpose is to guard the Ark of the Covenant.
And
And go
it's deep underground too, right? It's like underground that
Yep,
temple there in Ethiopia. So it's not
yep,
like it's there on the surface. You got to go down.
and
Um,
yep, and that's what the remote viewer saw, that it was subterranean, underground, wet, and above ground, he was seeing things like, domes and mosques. Well, Ethiopia, that could fit the criteria. He said it was in the Middle East.
right.
Ethiopia cannot be ruled out. Neither can, you know, other places in the Middle East like Israel. Um,
So
because the
let's go back to Moses real quick. All right, since you're right there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But when Moses was on the Mount Sinai, right, and then he talked to God the first time with the tree, the burning. Not, that was the
burning
other, that was Abraham. Uh,
Yep.
but when he talked to God, he told him that he was going to have these tablets, and when he slept, I don't know how many hours. When he woke up, those tablets were next to him, right? So apparently, those tablets were had the power of God. Let's just say, right? So there was just so much energy in those tablets for us to not know that why it was being used, right? Why it was being used for battles, and then why is in Ethiopia, like you said, when they guard it, they start getting blind or whatever, like radiation, right? So
Yep.
it's like it's very active, whatever it is.
And they also, with the 10 commandments, the, um, the staff, um, Aaron's staff, I believe, is in it, and manna. There's, what they fed the people with. There's manna, we've got the 10 commandments, and there is, this theory that it cannot be opened. Like, if you tried it, it's not possible, and it just makes me wonder if that's why they're guarding it, to keep other powers countries, military industrial complex from getting their hands on this. But, there's other theories that, the Vatican, that's one of the big ones, is believed to hold a trove of ancient relics and technologies, and also hidden in the US or Israeli black projects. Some say it was found and is now in deep military control. Could the ARK be a misunderstood power source, a weapon, a communication device? Maybe it's not symbolic. Maybe the ARK is literal bridge between man and something higher, something more dangerous.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, at this point, I believe anything. Even if it was destroyed and they got pieces of it and put it away and maybe made a mock tablet, a mock arcs,
They did in 2023.
right?
Israel was presented with a replica, and they are using the same verbiage as the biblical, Israelites that would take it to battle, and it's the exact measurements, the same everything biblically. I saw a picture of it. I shoulda grabbed screenshot that, and they presented this replica, and that's why this is viral right now, by the way, and why everybody's talking about it, because there's a replica down in Florida in Mar-a-Lago, and this has resurfaced this story that sort of got lost for decades. This story about the remote viewers doing this. I mean, it came out in the late 2000s, and now it's everywhere from Forbes magazine to the Daily Mail. The last 10 days, everybody who's who has talked about this, and that sparks my interest a little bit.
Yeah.
Why this is out here now. Why are we talking about it? And I love talking about it. And, so Project Sunstreak, and I wanna make a point of this sorta gets lost in it. It is an offshoot of Project Stargate, which, if you know, you know. That might be another episode, what Stargate is and was.
Well, what was this? Was there another one that they kind of did the same thing to where they were trying to jump into different wormholes or something?
Yeah, Project Stargate, yeah. I believe it never stopped, they just changed the names.
Ah,
So when people
okay.
submit FOIAs,
Right.
Freedom of Information Act,
Right.
they drop the code name. Yeah, they can say this isn't happening. They just renamed it, in my opinion.
Eh,
If I was the government, that's what I would do. Huh.
yeah. Just rename it. That way it is what it is. They just give it a different name, and then it's like,
Yeah,
okay, let's just keep on going. Let's get some more money from you guys. That way we can just keep
because
on doing this, right?
they still consult remote reviewers. From what I understand, they still get security clearance. They still consult. It's not just this mythical stuff. They use them to help find missing people, to get schematics against our adversaries. Why would they stop? It wouldn't make sense because our adversaries, if they're utilizing it, and
Well,
I think that's how it started.
yeah, but the thing is that since this podcast is called Frequencies of, because we have a frequency that resonates within us, right? So why
Yep,
not awaken that frequency, like this podcast, and learn how to channel different things using frequencies, right? Because the frequency does flow through our bodies. We know that it flows around the earth, and everything that we do, there's a frequency of some sort, right?
yep.
So
Earth's freaking sweet.
yeah,
7.83, like,
yeah. So why not? Why not? It doesn't take a special. To me, it's like if you concentrate, or if you meditate, or if you focus on something, you can actually either make it happen, or see it as it's happening, or find something that you've been looking for, right?
Yep.
And I think they were able to do that. I'm sure there's exercises for meditation for the
Yeah.
brain, and special pills they have to take and special diets in order to able to not
Access.
cloud yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, because, who they hired as consultants, the government contracted the Monroe Institute. And you can go and take remote viewing classes by Remote Viewer 001, the one that remote viewed Mars in 1 billion BCE. You can
Wow.
go take classes with him today. Like, that's that's crazy. And
Yeah.
I'm interested in it because it comes down to everybody has the ability.
Right.
We do. I believe that because there's too much science. Some are more adept and it comes easier. I did my deep diving on remote viewing. It's fascinating. It's astral projection, astral traveling, but a step further. And yeah, I think it's all about what people call spiritual gifts. I think is just science that hasn't been explored or disclosed.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. And that's what we're here for.
Yep.
we're,
I
we're,
want
we're
people to
we're here to
know.
help. Yeah. We're here to help. We're here to help, awaken that right here. So that way, at least you can, I don't know. I just think that maybe you can just kind of relate to people a little bit better. You get along with people a little bit better. You're able to understand people a little bit better, right? And then you brush off all the bad juju and all the bad crap that
Yep.
people does, right? So you're able to do that. Like today, right? I was me and my son. I just picked him up from work, right? And I'm gonna tell you this real quick. We picked him up from work, and we're coming back home, and there's this, they're having this rally out there, anti this, anti that, yada yada, blah blah blah. Here we go, right? And we're just me and my son just looking at him, and we're just smiling at him. I said, just smile right at everybody, and it was both. It was both kinds, but we didn't care. It's just hey. And he says, man, it's just sometimes you got to let that kind of stuff bounce off you. People take things too critical, and then they get too angry, and it's just bad energy, really, in reality,
Yep.
right?
We
And
shouldn't be fighting each other, and that is the frequency, anger, divisiveness, and the clashing. I feel like maybe powers to be, they count on us fighting one another because
right,
we aren't looking their direction. The
exactly,
power of turning inward and doing the work and then us coming together, I think we would be unstoppable as a species, as humanity. And I think we've lost a little bit of that. And I haven't given up hope. That's why I'm here next to you doing this
right,
because I see more and more people waking up like we shouldn't be fighting. That
right,
we're not the problem. My neighbor is not the problem.
right. Well, and then you said the exact perfect words. Is hope. Hope is what keeps you going, right? They had hope, right, and they used everything that they could within the arc, and to try to help them through the rivalries and all that stuff. And then it all just turned into power later that everybody wanted. But
Yeah.
what happened? And I think this is probably what happened in the end, right? That the Almighty or the universe or whoever created us, right? Probably say, you know what? You ain't having it, and you ain't having it. So, and it's destroyed, right?
Yep.
And because if you do have it, that's just too much for you. I gave you something to use to help, but then you started using it, so other people just wanted it for a different reason, right? and it just kind of made the evil more intensified it a little bit more, right? So,
Yeah.
and I think that that's probably what happened. That it's probably gone in a sense. There might be the fragments of it, right? There might be fragments all over the world. People they might have different fragments of it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what these remote viewers are seeing it in different places, right? Like you said, and some with domes, some in dark places, some that have like synagogues, things like that. So maybe that's what it is. It's just it's destroyed. It's useless. It might still have some sort of power, but not its full potential because it's all the pieces are broken in different ways, right?
Yeah.
So maybe
And there's, like, the copper scroll that was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. M I think maybe remote viewers have like, accidentally channeled the history because there's talk of the Ark of the Covenant in the copper scroll that famously was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and maybe that was history we were unaware of, and they zoned in on that copper scroll, and it shed light on things we didn't know before,
right.
and I think history will keep be being rewritten. Maybe one day we will know, um, but I think it's a good conversation for us to have in the bigger picture.
Yeah, and that's true. It's like what is the bigger picture really in reality, right? Because I posted this video of this woman saying that our human DNA strand is uh is 9 billion years old. That's when it goes back to the very beginning. Our DNA, right? 9 billion years old is a human how old the human DNA is. But our planet is only 5 billion years old, right?
Maybe we're the aliens.
Maybe we're the aliens, right? Or we were just we were already out there in the universe and brought into this area, right?
Yep.
Who's to say that? I don't know. It just things happen for a reason. Things just doesn't don't create itself, right?
No,
So why not have a larger power in a belief system in something that would help, right? It's no harm, no foul, right? To help you
right,
in believing in something more grand than what we are, and whether it's whatever religion you want to call it, or even in yourself, or just Buddha or God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, at least you have that same you're in touch with something positive, right?
right.
And that's what I believe Buddha teaches too. Nothing but positivity, right? When you do meditations too, it's just nothing but positivity, and we all flow together in that same frequency. So it kind of comes together in almost a full circle in a sense, but
I think so.
but
Yeah,
just yeah, we're still trying to wonder, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? In that sense, right? So I don't know. I don't know. It's just it goes deep, and it can go real freaking deep if you think about it.
yeah. I mean, figuratively, metaphorically, literally, it can go so much deeper. Um, I think I think wrapping up the main points here, the Project Sunstreak, CIA's use of psychics, mystery of the art, you know, to the listeners, like, I'm curious, where do you think the arc is? Do you think it's spread across in pieces? Do you believe the government really gave up on psychic spying? You know? I mean, I think our next episodes coming up, we're gonna get more into the answering maybe some of that,
Yeah,
interviewing some special guests,
yeah,
uh, that might have some knowledge. I can't wait.
yeah. I mean, yeah, we're if and everybody that's listening out there, this is a video podcast, and it's also on audio. So if you're not able to visualize everything, just come back to the video. You can find us on Rumble, YouTube, on Twitch. And just go back or even look for us on TikTok. Go look for all my links that are on there. If you want to go back and just kind of listen to what we have to say. And just like Danielle said, what do you think? Do you think that this really, this all this is happening, the remote viewing, the actual ark itself, the scriptures according to Exodus, and everything like that. What are your thoughts on that? If you have a thought, drop a line on us here on Rumble, on YouTube, even on our Spreaker, iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify. We're everywhere. All right. So it's just this conversation can go real super deep, and it all depends which way you can present it. And we presented it in two different scenarios here, right? But in really reality, like Janelle said, we have a guest coming up here. We already mentioned him, and he'll be on probably in about a week or two, maybe.
Yeah, mid-April. I know he's, doing a conference and was a speaker at a conference, I think right now. But when he gets back, we're nailing down the date of mid-April.
Right, right. And that's Mr. Jason Sands, correct?
Yes. Military whistleblower. Uh, he was in the Joe Rogan Experience, and one of the biggest whistleblowing documentaries of, I think, our lifetime.
Yeah, he had.
And I'm excited
Yeah,
to hear. Yeah, he worked at Area 51, has some there's a lot more I think he has to share with the world, and he has a very positive outlook despite anything and everything he's been through. It's
right,
a very interesting story,
right.
and I
And
think
he's gonna be. I mean, like we're gonna have a lot of good questions for him. Like I said before, we're gonna touch. I want to know exact things that had happened, what he saw, and but of course, it's going to be coming up on this podcast. It's going to be a video podcast that we're going to have Mr. Jason Sands. Of course, he was on Joe Rogan Experience, and we're excited to have him on. He's going to be our first guest, and after that, we're going to try to get Clive Christopher. We're going to get
yep,
him on as well. We're going to talk about his movies, Aliens Uncovered. He's got plenty of those, and we're going to get him on the show as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this content. Like I said, give us a like, subscribe, everything, our YouTube. Hit all my links that's on there. Find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, everything on there. Um, and we'll figure out what we're going to talk about next. We're going to dive deeper into something else, right?
yes.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys on the next one. Appreciate you. Thank you for listening and watching the Awakening Frequency podcast. See you on the next one.
Good night.